Okay, so hey guys and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Michal Cieslak versus Jean Pascal fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. It's something I'm just starting at the moment, £5 a month, and you can request any custom video to do with combat sports, whether that be a prediction or a breakdown or an analysis of just something that's going on in the combat sporting world. Feel free. There's going to be probably a video out there which will be the first membership only video coming within the next couple of days, so feel free to check that out. Thank you very much. But yeah, let's get straight into this fight. So it's an interesting matchup. I think on paper it's an actual really good fight. Well, I say really good. I think it's a good fight on paper. I mean, from the state of the Cruiserweight division at the moment, which I'll touch upon in a minute, I think it is a good fight. I mean, Pascal is 42 and Cieślak is 36. Cieślak is on a 6-fight knockout streak, and so you would definitely say is deserving, I suppose, maybe not of an interim title, but of somewhat of a bigger fight. And Pascal, I think this is perhaps a last gasp effort to get him into perhaps not. I don't even know if he's wanting to get in a world title shot again, because I feel like any of the world champions would really deal damage to Pascal at the moment, especially Optaya and Zerdo. And so, I think this is a fight in which he's been given due to the fact of the poor state of the cruiserweight division at the moment. I mean, we're talking about here Jean Pascal, the guy who fought Carl Froch in 2008, and that was his kind of first major big fight. And then he's fought some of the biggest names. He fought Bernard Hopkins twice, drew against him. He fought Kovalev twice, got stopped twice against him, and fought Dmitry Bivol when Bivol was on the kind of rise. And so he's fought some amazing names, but he's 42 years of age. Like, why are we seeing him fight for an interim world title fight now? Like I say, that just showcases the state of the division. It's just so weak still, and I still don't think there's any real standout names in the way of contenders that are really exciting me at the moment. And I mean, the WBC have just been continually putting these interim title fights on the line, and they have a mandatory in Michalian. And yes, Michalian just fought Badu Jack, but they're trying to run the rematch back for that. So if they have a mandatory for a title, why do they need an interim as well? It never makes sense. And like I say, I just don't think this is a matchup which warrants an interim world title fight, and I just don't believe either of these guys are going to go on to fight for a world title, even if they win this fight. And I don't know if either guy should. I mean, Cieślak, yes, is on a good winning streak, so, perhaps he could be more so deserving it. But Pascal, I mean, he's coming off an absolute brutal knockout last time out in the 10th round, but it was a fight in which you could argue he wasn't really winning, or if so, it was a close fight against a guy who was much lower level than what Pascal has fought at before. Yes, Pascal is a former WBC light heavyweight champion, but that was his first fight at cruiserweight. He won the NABO title with that, but again, why was that fight for a NABO title? I just don't think it should have been. And like I say, I just don't think this deserves an interim world title fight. And I just don't think there should be an interim world title fight for this WBC belt, because like I said, they have a mandatory. So it's just, like I say, weird, and the state of the cruiserweight division is a bit strange at the moment. I mean, there's just no real kind of exciting standout names at the moment other than the champions, and the champions just aren't fighting each other, which is such a shame. I mean, Optaya looks amazing and looks unstoppable, but he's just not being given the opportunities to fight anybody of note, and so he's having to resort to fight somebody like Ascao when Zerda Ramirez is there, but he's resorting to fighting Dorticos. I will understand if Zerda Ramirez fights Dorticos and then goes in to fight Optaya, because, that's getting rid of a mandatory. I understand them. But if that doesn't happen, then something's going to have to change in this division, because, at that point, I think Optaya should just leave the cruiserweight division, because there's just no exciting fights for him, and just let him move up into the heavyweight division, because, like I say, otherwise he's just going to be wasting his career in this cruiserweight division, in which, you kind of look down for bigger names. I mean, you've had Billum Smith, who beats Brandon Glanton, and again, they're two names in which, Billum Smith's brought a bit of hype to the UK, but isn't gonna be that big of a that big of a seller, that big of a draw to the division. And then yeah, you've got Zeta Ramirez and Optai, two great fighters, but then Badu Jackson, aging world champion who's hardly ever fighting and only just kind of scraped past Michalian, who I don't think is that good of a fighter. Then you've also got Riziki, who is an entertaining fighter with his stoppages, but I don't know how actually skilled he is, and he's not been getting opportunities because Michalian's been champion. So you've also got Peralta as well, who drew versus Riziki, so it's just not an entertaining division. Then you look down and it's just there's not really that many names. I mean, a lot of the fighters, like I says, like he's already fought against two of the bigger names at the time in the division. He fought against Makabu. I mean, Makabu's still getting relatively big fights whenever he wants, and he's aged as well. And then he fought Okoli, who Okoli's gone and moved on into the heavyweight division. So fair play to him. But again, Cieślak is probably one of the most entertaining prospects, I suppose, if you could even call him a prospect at 36 years of age. He's probably one of the only entertaining or exciting guys coming up in the division at the moment, and contender, I suppose, is the right way of putting it. Whereas Pascal, I just don't know if he is that. Yes, he's coming off a brutal knockout, but is that going to be enough for people to just kind of forget that he is 42 years of age? I'm not entirely sure. And I mean, this is on a small show in Canada, so like I say, maybe it's just giving props to Pascal and what he's achieved in his career. And maybe if he loses this fight, he might go on to retire. But yeah, it's a good matchup, I think, but then just a weird one at the same time. But I mean, the fact that Cieślak is one of the Polish fighters who are still left standing, who carry their sponsors on them, literally on their skin when they're fighting. That's a dying thing, I think. I don't think many Polish fighters are still doing that at the moment. I might be wrong, but in boxing, I haven't seen many. I mean, there's him and Masternak, I think, did it, and so that, like I say, other than that, there really isn't that many. Um, but yeah, so that's a little dying thing, which I suppose is a thing in which makes Cieślak a little bit unique to an extent. But to speak about them both individually as fighters, Cieślak and Pascal. Cieślak, he wants to, when he's at his best, he's fighting in the centre and aims to get into the centre of the ring straight away. And he was trying to do that against Okoli in their fight, but so he kind of went into a clinch straight away, but then Okoli rocked him and hurt him in that first round, and everybody's thinking that he's going to be able to get him out of there. But of course, in typical Okoli fashion, he really smothers his work. I mean, Cieślak was helping him smother, but still really couldn't really land anything else significant throughout the rest of the fight, which kind of landed at the same kind of level as that first punch. But he wants to get straight into the centre of the ring. I think he's got a good chin at the same time, Cieślak. He puts a lot of his work off his jab, similarly to an extent to that of Pascal, but I suppose actually no, maybe not to that of Pascal. Says like a lot of his work comes off his jab. He's definitely physical. I think he is the more physical out of the two. Of course, you got to remember he is the natural cruiserweight, and the fact that Pascal is going to be coming up in weight at this age probably isn't a good sign. I don't know if that's going to be, that added weight's going to be kind of muscle, if that's just going to be fat, to be completely honest. So I don't know if that's a good thing, the fact that he's coming up in weight. He's can fight at an in close or a mid range, says like he won't be bullied, and he showcased that in his step up fights. He finds gaps to the body quite nicely, and he varies up his lead hand shots relatively well. He can have it as a jab or cross it as to then throw it as a hook. He walks you down if he's allowed to. I mean, if he's allowed to fight at his pace, he will continually walk you down, and he can land good shots, and he can be a threat at that point. But if he's not allowed to fight at his pace, then he fights on the back foot and he stays on the ropes a bit too long. And he knows how to tie you up and he knows how to survive, but he doesn't necessarily know how to actually get the best of work off. He puts his all into his shots throughout majority of his punches. He'll throw with intent. He's got a good chin, like I say. I think he has kind of awkward footwork at times. I think he is a bit of an awkward fighter at times. He has kind of a thing about him in which he kind of tries to slap away oncoming punches and just walk backwards, slapping away them if he ever does go backwards. And I don't think that's something I'd recommend, but it's an awkward thing. And like I say, if he's allowed to control the pace, that's when he will definitely let off his best work. Speak negatives about him, I mean, he has minimal head movement. Pascal was always known for having quite good head movement and, being quite explosive in that element as well, definitely explosive. And I feel like that's the opposite of Cieślak. But of course, we're getting this Pascal who is aged. He doesn't have the best of balance because I think, like I say, he's just not used to going on the back foot, and he is quite a flat-footed fighter, Cieślak. I think his speed is limited. He's quite a tense fighter. I mean, he doesn't seem that loose. Like I say, a lot of his work is quite tense, and I think that links to, again, his balance as well. His timing isn't the best. I don't think his accuracy in his hooks are the best either, and he can stay on the ropes, and he can also get caught when he's coming out of the clinches, in which he often initiates. But to speak about Pascal as a fighter, he still has decent hand speed. I mean, his hand speed in his kind of heyday when he was down at the super middleweight division. I mean, I do look back upon that fight with Carl Froch. I mean, I love Carl Froch as a fighter, and you look back upon that fight with Pascal, and it was such an entertaining fight. There was so many punches thrown, and it was, just great hand speed from Pascal, and just non-stop, relentless kind of fight throughout all of it. It's a fight that was, a typical fight that just flown by. There really wasn't much kind of messy clinching, really. It was a lot of good work, and all of a sudden, big shots coming in from Pascal quite often did catch Carl Froch out. And yeah, I mean, at this point in his career, obviously he's a shadow of that fighter to an extent, but he still has got decent hand speed there, and I would say it is better than that of Cieślak's. He's got quite a high guard for the majority of the time, which is good. He finds the spot with his big overhand rights. Of course, that's how he landed the devastating knockout last time out. But for the most part, that is, of course, his most dangerous weapon, and that was what was the explosive, dangerous weapon when he was in his kind of prime years. He has these rushing attacks, which, yes, are difficult to be able to counteract, and definitely might be able to catch somebody with the poor balance like a Cieślak out, but he does duck his head down a lot, so he could definitely get caught with a big uppercut doing that, and that could really damage him. He will walk you down. He punches around the guard. He lands seemingly more significantly. He may get out thrown in a round, but he often can land one singular shot or two singular shots, which will be the more significant, even if he looks like he's just kind of wandering about and not really fighting with much intent. He will suddenly throw a big shot, and that's what can hurt, and that's seemingly his style at the moment, which is, I suppose, a smart way to fight because it does conserve that energy of his. He still has, like I say, a little bit of head movement left, which is nice to see, and he lands the shot when necessary, and that's all, of course, that matters really. Negatives about him, he's getting more flat-footed. I think in his better years, he was a bit more of a nimble type of fighter who could slip shots and look good in that aspect, but he's definitely getting more flat-footed, and his reactions really aren't what they used to be either, and something in which often you see on the decline of fighters is they get moved a lot more with punches, even just jabs. He got caught a lot with jabs in his last fight against an opponent who, again, was a really not a high level opponent, and he was getting caught with jabs, and they were significantly kind of pushing him back a lot of the time, and then he has to kind of reset and plod back forwards again, and it means, like I say, he's getting caught quite a lot more, and again, it just means that he's kind of aging a bit, and you can see the strength isn't quite there. And with a physical fighter like Cieślak, he might be able to kind of maneuver him around a bit more. He's open to uppercuts, like I say. I think he doesn't handle high outputs the best. He doesn't feint that much, so he can be a bit more predictable at this point in his career than he once was. He will sit on the ropes a bit more now than what he once does. He lows up. He lets himself not be first in exchanges, which isn't really always the best of mindsets, and he does want to fight at a slow pace, which, I mean, it might suit Cieślak, and I'm sure Cieślak probably will want to fight at a slow pace, but I think he will probably be able to turn it up a bit more than that of Pascal, and that's why I think Michal Cieślak will be able to win via TKO in round 6. If this was both fighters in their prime years, I mean, they probably wouldn't be fighting each other because there would have been a significant height difference or size difference, but I still think that Jean Pascal would be able to pretty much do what he wanted with Cieślak and have a lot of success. But at this point in Pascal's career, like I say, with the way that he's getting moved around with punches, and I think the age is really starting to catch up to him. I think Cieślak, on the momentum run that he's on, with the fact that he's been able to get these stoppages. I mean, the last fight wasn't a kind of big knockout stoppage. His opponent tore his bicep, which was quite a brutal tear, and to be fair, he couldn't have really continued, but he still was causing quite a bit of damage onto him in that last fight of Cieślak's. But yeah, like I said, I think he's going to be able to land quite big shots. I think it won't be a devastating knockout, but it will just be a continuing amount of shots where he's able to fight on the front foot, Cieślak, able to control the pace, and then able to let out his combinations in which he wants to throw and fight in close at times as well. And like I say, be able to deliver that knockout in round 6, which might be a retirement from the corner, to be completely honest. But who he goes on to fight next, like I've said, there's a few names there. I think for Cieślak, he's probably looking at quite a few names in which perhaps could put him into contention for a world title, because I don't think having this interim belt is going to mean he's going to get a world title any quicker, but he might sit around and wait for a Badou Jack versus Michalian rematch to be ordered, and if it doesn't get ordered, then he'll jump in. If he doesn't want to wait and does want to fight again, Riziki, Peralta, Makabu, 3 names there that I've listed. Makabu, I don't really care for him to try and get another shot at a world title, but it is a rematch for Cieślak, so maybe Cieślak might be interested to try and avenge his loss. Or, the biggest payday out of probably everybody was probably be Billam Smith, and Billam Smith, of course, has just fought on the Eubank Ben undercard. He probably got paid very well with that, of course, that being the first Ring Magazine event, so maybe that could make sense as a fight. Billam Smith is, he had a tough fight against Zerda Ramirez. He got outclassed, but it was a tough fight still, and he had a good fight versus Brandon Glanson where he did look good. So, maybe, I mean, we're still waiting to see what's happening with Boxer and Sky at the moment, but if Billam Smith is still getting pushed as a big British name, then maybe somebody like a Cieślak could come over to England, get a decent payday, and get a bit of money there. So maybe that might happen, and I'm sure Cieślak will probably be wanting the biggest payday in which he could get in his career at this moment in time. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.